Speaking moistly, keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Speaking Moistly, and with me, as usual, is Greg. How are you doing this week, Greg?
Fantabulous.
Are you locked down? Are you still in lockdown?
I mean, I go for walkarounds whenever I can, but
Nice.
you know, I'm not really like, unfortunately, and no, I'm not really like, hanging out with large groups of people so much.
No, I
But,
just meant like, is your city in the like red, or what color code are you in? Do you care?
Unfortunately, since I don't like regularly consume mainstream news,
Mhm.
I have no idea what the rules are because I understand they change every 5 minutes.
Oh, they do. Yes, that's true.
So I remember seeing a clip of Doug talking about, oh, and this is red, and I don't know. I have no idea where we are.
Fair enough.
So,
I go and play hockey with my brother on Friday nights, and by hockey I mean like Xbox hockey. And so we were hanging out and we were talking about all this, and he was telling me a story about how he was in his break room and the other guys were talking about all the COVID restrictions and blah blah blah, and somebody asked him like, don't you think that's crazy? And he was like, what's crazy? He's like, all these COVID restrictions. And my brother was like, I go to a grocery store, I get my stuff, I go home, I don't really pay attention to it, so whatever. Like, he was saying that he was just so checked out, everybody else is so stressed, I don't care so much, I'm just gonna live my life and not worry about it. Is that where you're at, kind of?
I sort of, yeah. I try, like, I'm really, I'm politically engaged like you are, so I'm like super concerned of the ramifications for, like, especially the economy, the local economy, and like the job market and things like that, and how that's going to affect people. And I actually was talking to a business owner that I know, and we chat now and then, and I mentioned how I don't follow the news and I don't know the rules. And I thought, what if you just did that as a business owner, like they own a restaurant, and being like, oh, like person, I literally didn't know the rules. I literally did not even know that.
They'll still fine you. They'll fine you just the same. They'll close you down. See, have you seen the Jews in New York against Andrew Cuomo? That's a weird battle to have in 2020.
I have not seen that. No.
No, the bagel shops and bakeries and all sorts of places are getting like shut down because of the COVID inspectors, and like they're shutting down shops that are complying and all this stuff. So I don't know.
Sounds pretty anti-Semitic to me.
There's a lot of comparison. There's a lot of people making that comparison. I don't know what other places that comparison could be made in, but you know. So moving into our news, I mean, it's all kind of COVID-y, isn't it? But this week, we've had some election news. Do we still have a president? The Electoral College hasn't been decided yet. The news is called Biden, but there's some problems with that, I've heard. So that's interesting, right? Have you heard of the Dominion voting system issues, Greg?
I have heard some rumors. I've heard some damning accusations. I haven't dug into any so-called evidence because I think it's still kind of being, collected, and the case is being made right now. But it doesn't look too good for this it's Canadian company, right?
Yeah, Dominion's a Canadian company. It's got connections through the U.S. and there's all sorts of They use Chinese components in your voting system, so that's
perfect.
Good to know, right? It's a big story, right? Like, it's a big story. The U.S. election is undecided, despite what the press would have you believe, and Elections Canada has heard of this story, and they're putting out damage control. They've sent out these series of tweets. Elections Canada does not use Dominion voting systems. We use paper ballots counted by hand in front of scrutineers, and have never used voting machines or electronic tabulators to count votes in our 100-year history. Wow. Does that instill confidence in you, in our voting system to you?
There's nothing to worry about. We don't use that Dominion software. I mean, the message serves its purpose. It's a PR message. Mm-hmm. It's only natural for anyone who has heard about this story will think, well, it's a Canadian company. Well, does that happen in Canada? So I'm not surprised by this message. But I mean, just the story alone that this software exists and could be compromised, everybody who lives in a democracy in Canada or the US should be following this and very concerned about it. Mm-hmm. Because, this is the democracy that we like to, love and adore and almost like fetishize so much. And it's like, this is a pretty key component, the machine that counts the ballots that we put our faith into for our entire democracy. So
Right. Well, they're saying that they don't use a machine, but here's the interesting thing: they know about it. They know people are concerned about it. They know people are concerned enough about it to put out this tweet. But how do you count the ballots for the leadership race in the Liberal Party of Canada? Do you know?
I don't. Is it the
Dominion voting machines. How did
There you go.
How did the Conservative Party of Canada decide their leadership race? Do you know? Yes.
Dominion voting system?
Yes. How did the Ontario PC Party decide their leadership race? Do you know?
Dominion voting systems.
You've got it, sir. So it seems like nothing to worry about here if you don't take any kind of deeper dive. We're aware of the problem. We know there are issues with the voting machine. Please don't worry. We hand count those ballots of those those puppets that you're voting for, who've been installed by the Dominion voting machines.
I feel it. I feel like that is a technique that happens in the news media, which is like, hey, there's no problem here, therefore all these other things don't exist. Like, hey, it's not at the federal level, so it's not in Canada. Like, they don't say it's not in Canada at all, but they kind of imply, hey, this isn't in Canada.
Yep.
But of course, something tells me there'll be no follow up. There'll be nobody explaining
who's
on
going
CTV.
Yeah.
I was going to say CTV Global News or CBC to say, oh, well, by the way, Dominion voting systems does exist here, here, and here. Let's wait. I'm not going to hold my breath, but we'll see.
But the other issue to consider, and it is worth considering, is that it doesn't really take a machine to have election fraud done. There was the guy who deleted all of the records against the Liberals' wishes, and I can't exactly remember the parameters around that story, but he had like all sorts of responsibilities around election integrity, and he said, oh, it's horse crap, and then he deleted all the records. And you've got the unwillingness of Bell Media to run Faith Goldie's advertising. You've got Antifa protesting specific parties and not protesting other parties, and that's not illegal. You can protest who you like, right? But the weaponization of these protests has been such that it's on a level we haven't seen in Canada. So is there no election interference in Canada? I don't know. You'd have to be the judge, but it seems like they've got things pretty wired. They're giving us candidates that were decided by the Dominion system to run in the elections. And Ontario and New Brunswick both use the Dominion systems as well. So it's crazy how tilted our elections really are.
Yeah, and I mean, if you just kind of look at the way that the Liberals campaign around an election, and in terms of just how much money they throw around, and especially leading up to this most recent one in 2019, they were spending so much money leading up to the election, and it wasn't like it wasn't election campaign funds. It was just like, oh, we're the liberal government, and we're going to make all of these spending decisions. Like, I think it was actually in 1 week alone they spent like $5 billion. Like they announced like $5 billion in different expenditures. So like just like random companies here and there, random little things here and there, just like spreading the love, so to speak.
Well,
and then the other thing, was that. If I'm not mistaken, Trudeau was kind of going around the country, not to campaign for the election coming up, but it was like to talk about issue X or something like this.
Yep.
So it's
climate change.
Once again, a way to kind of get around campaign rules to obviously, propagate.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, they're electioneering on the Canadian tax dollar. But here's the thing. I wanted to kind of bridge off that. Remember all this is an emergency rhetoric? Remember the emergency, all the cities declaring a state of emergency about climate change a little while ago, 6 months ago or whatever? Remember that? Here's what I think. I think that if COVID-19 didn't conveniently jump into the limelight, I think that they were going to try and push all these lockdowns with the climate change thing. You can't fly because it's going to kill the earth. You can't do this because it might offend somebody, right? Like the woodland creatures might get offended, right? You can't develop oil and gas anymore, and can't live or work out in certain parts of the world. Like this Agenda 2030 is by whatever means necessary, and it's very, very scary, I think.
Yeah, and I know that this isn't really on the agenda to talk about today, but recently Mr. Trudeau has talked about the Great Reset as being this thing that is a well-known fact, and it really is the great connector between these two issues for normies. It's like, hey, remember the whole climate change thing? Hey, remember this COVID thing? They're quite related.
Yep.
and they're quite kind of all headed in the same direction.
Yep.
And you called me a conspiracy last year, but look what's happening now. I don't know. It's people will go through great lengths to avoid what's right in front of them. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, even that leaked document, the leaked document that said, more lockdowns now and then a mutation coming up. I could definitely see a mutation coming up. I saw that. Have you seen the movie trailer for that bracelet? It's the pandemic's gone out of control and it attacks the brain, and some people are immune, so they got bracelets or whatever. The guy's like, "Oh no, I'm immune." You seen that?
The songbird thing.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I know. I saw that preview. That was terrifying.
Yeah, terrifying because we're living it.
And the concept of COVID-21 or whatever is also terrifying.
Yeah.
And I tell this to people like, hey, I don't care your political background, your leanings, or whatever. Every country in the world got infected with the virus, whether through incompetence or corruption. Mm-hmm. You decide how it happened, but that's possible.
Yeah.
That doesn't really make me. That's a pretty chilling reality.
Well, where did the flu go? Where did the all-cause mortality are normal? We're not looking at mass extra deaths here. I've mapped it out. I've mapped it out from Canada's data. It's like I've graphed it. It's on CanadaReport.co. So I'm skeptical. I've got my heavy skeptical pants, and they can just manufacture this, right? Like manufactured tests on manufactured death numbers. 70. So we had 103 people die in Ontario over the last 7 days, Saturday to Saturday. Last 7 days from this past Saturday,
yep. Mm-hmm.
And out of this 100, it was 103. Did I say 103? Out of that, it was 70 people, or 71 were in long-term care homes, right? We locked down the economy for 30 people died, and a death count is anybody who's had a positive COVID test within 28 days of passing away. So I mean, you get a positive COVID test, you're on the way home, you get into a car accident, and positive COVID test.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, what I find so disturbing about all this is, you know what? It's the experts. The experts said this, and the way in which kind of experts and the authorities and the reports said, and people are just like, oh well, I guess that's all there is to say about it. When in reality, there are other experts, there are other reports, there are other people who have experience and therefore authority, who are disagreeing with these mainstream experts. And it's really chilling how, a great example is if you go on Twitter right now and you read a tweet from Donald Trump talking about election results and how he won, there's a little Twitter label that says this information is disputed. If you actually click on that link, one of a few of the points or the facts that they have is voter fraud is very rare in the U.S. That's actually something it says. It's experts claim it's very rare. The other one was ridiculous. It was it was actually a point that said experts say, and it's this is supposed to be hard hitting facts, and this is almost editorialized. Some guy said this.
Yep.
Yep.
Well,
critical thinking, critical thinking is so important, and unfortunately, the technology around us is discouraging it at alarming rates.
Yeah, well, the rap smear. So all you have to do is get a New York Times or a reputable news source to publish your whatever you want, and then it's truth, right? You can just, the New York Times says it, so there you go, done. Or the Toronto Star, whoever it is.
A rap smear. I'll have to look up what that is.
Oh, look up Nancy Pelosi explains a rap, WRAP, rap smear, not a.
No, I know. Yeah, I hear you.
But the other part of this is, there was a point I was going to make, and it had to do with what we were talking about. No, never mind. I was going to make, it'll probably jump into my head again in a minute, but we'll move on to the next story. Apparently, they're going to be trying to close the schools. Lecce suggests early school closures possible to slow COVID-19 spread. Now, I just want to give you a prepper here. In Guelph, we have one person in the hospital, down from 2 people in the hospital, and no newly confirmed cases. And we just went from yellow to orange because COVID's scary, right? Case numbers. But we don't have anybody in the hospital. So they're looking at closing down schools, and not a little bit of closing down schools. They want kids to be logging into the laptop and checking in with their teacher. This is, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not chaining my kids to a post-national laptop. They can shove it up there. It's
Hold
ridiculous.
on, they want to give kids laptops from the school? Is that what
Already they want online. So online learning is like you log in and you check in with your teacher and you have a certain amount of time that you have to spend every day online on the laptop. And I've even heard there have been reports, people have been sending me reports of them recording their kids without the express permission of the parents, like recording the session, recording the day, and on like a Microsoft OneDrive. So how many kids are being recorded throughout Ontario without their parents being aware? The parents said that they terminated that, and now instead of having to check in, like they terminated the check-ins for their kid, and now instead of logging in, they get the work sent to them, so their kid isn't being recorded. But like, what kind of post-national hell is this?
I don't like that. I mean, it must be really challenging for you and other parents because you're relying on so much faith in people to be like, oh yeah, no, we're not recording it. You know, this is all. We're doing this. This is all in your best interest.
Here's
and
the
it's like,
yeah, I'd love to see if I could get access to those recordings as a parent, right? Give me all the recordings you have of my child. Ha. I mean,
Weird.
could they even, right? Like, I don't even know if they could. I don't know that they'd have. If they don't have the ability to produce that, should they have the ability to? Should they have the permission to create that? You know what I mean? Should they be able to record people when?
I would love to see the stats to see if you know,
If you're,
if homeschooling is becoming more popular.
it's
But
hard.
but I
Very
but I
difficult.
did want to talk to the headline of this article.
Yep.
Because before we turn the camera on here, they're really like coaching people so well with this idea, like, you know, possible to slow the COVID-19 spread. Like they're really communicating to people, yeah, the more that kids go to school, the more that like anybody talks to one another, the virus just spreads like crazy, spreads like wildfire. Therefore, you know, socializing spread virus. Like they're really kind of like implying that as a reality, like a rule that anytime you hang out with people, like, you know, no socialization in person or COVID spread and people die.
And and it's funny though, because healthy people don't spread illness. Like healthy people just don't spread illness. And so like this idea of making everybody afraid of everybody else is not healthy. Like it's not.
Don't go to
healthy.
the gym. Gyms are closed. Walmart's fine. Lickbo is fine. LCBO is fine.
Yeah.
Don't go to the gym. You know, don't have recess. Stay inside. Look at the computer screen. Get reported.
Hey man, it's what
all
we do.
very.
It's what we do. I'm just
man.
showing on the screen here the deaths in the first wave compared to the second wave, and you can see on the screen, and you don't have this, Greg, but on the screen the cases in the first wave and the deaths. It's a very different curve. The large curve is the cases this time, whereas last time the large curve was the death. And the most amount of deaths we've got this time is 15 on November 29th. Or no, sorry, what day was that? November 15th had 29 deaths. Excuse me. So like that's a substantial number of deaths until you remember how many of those are coming out of long-term care and old folks' homes. How many of those are just being included because they've got a positive COVID test and they would have died as a natural end to their condition anyway, around now anyway, right? Like it's so manufactured. It's hard to believe. More than hard to believe.
Yeah, and it's I can't even imagine the psychological effect it's having on young people. Okay, wear your mask. Okay, stand behind the plastic wall. Okay, now you're not going to school anymore because you're going to have to stop the spread. And okay, now you're going to get this Q-tip up your nose.
Yeah, imagine trying to like kiss somebody for the first time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, imagine going on a first date and being like, "Hold on a second, I've got to. You know, why are you taking your mask off? No reason." You know, like, oh my god, like, how do you even navigate? It used to be you're like, oh, okay, oh yeah, no, I was definitely tired, right? Like, I could. But
this is sort of a tangent, but this is something I thought about recently. You know, as a like, you know, society or culture, like we are only sort of just getting over the like generational trauma that World War II had in store and like the different things that have happened. And now we're just creating so much more trauma for ourselves in this like a crazy postmodern world where like once again we're going to raise another generation that's been traumatized with all sorts of madness, and the cycle will continue.
how do you quantify men who would go and fight a war and then come back and build an economy that we inherited that was like one of the strong, like now is the people are jealous of that economy. Like back then a single person could buy a house, right? Like holy cow, right? Like you didn't maybe have dollar wealth, but you had wealth. You could, if you worked, you could put food on the table and blah blah blah. But now we're in a situation where those were toxically masculine people who went to fight for freedom. How dare they? And Sir John A. Macdonald is a racist. And if people don't agree with that, then they're racist too. Yeah, get bent.
People shouldn't take history personally,
People should. I thought you were like they shouldn't take history classes personally.
No,
and I was
they shouldn't
like,
take.
They should take history.
Yeah, no,
but I understand now.
They take it like they're
take it. Yeah.
Yeah, and to apply 2020 standards to stuff that like happened years ago, it's just silly. And it's silly, but it's unfortunately people have entire careers built off of this like, crazy logical jump or this crazy like juxtaposition of, hey, I'm going to apply my critical race theory to like the 1950s. Or so, or hockey. Excuse my language there, but it's just so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. All right, the last story for today, because we need some space to talk about this one. Our beginning story was the Dominion voting system and all of the pending. Oh, I guess I should be talking here. The pending litigation to figure out who's the winner. It would be like inviting Al Gore to Canada. So MPs. All of the MPs unanimously agreed to invite Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to visit Canada when it's safe. When it's safe, when COVID's done. And now that Trump's gone, it's going to be safe, but whatever. But when COVID's done or whatever, they're going to invite Al Gore. And then do you think that the invite stands if Trump wins? Do you think they could come and address Parliament? What do you think? Of course not. And this is such a plain pattern for anybody. I try to tell people like, hey, there's a very clear pattern on who is a globalist, who is not a globalist, and how the media and how the establishment treats these people. Yep. And in many ways, this is like an anti-Trump gesture because this, it's especially with this Dominion voting system, it looks like this is a very contended election. There seems to be a lot of more numbers and things that need to be done before it's decided by the looks of it.
Yep.
And for anyone paying attention, that's the case. But nope. The media is like Biden won. Now even Canadian politicians are like, yep, Biden won.
Yep.
And
that's called adding legitimacy, by the way. They're
right.
They're doing that. They're doing that specifically to add legitimacy to the win.
Yeah. And it's, it just seems very clear to me. Like anytime that Aaron O'Toole got elected, Conservative Party, and everyone's like, "Yeah, good job, Aaron O'Toole." And then, by the way, Derek Sloan, he kick him out of your party. By the way, that was like the next thing that was said. And it's like, again, this is a very clear pattern. If it's a more globalist person, then they're going to get, it's almost like they're all friends.
Yes.
And then if they're somebody who is not so globalist, then it's like, get them out of here. I don't like them. Jagmeet Singh tweeted like, "Get rid of Donald Trump, vote him out." And it's, we're supposed to believe that they're on different teams, but it's like, no, I don't. It feels like they're on the same team.
Yeah, well, it's as hard to believe as the COVID cases are spreading rampantly and widely and all this other stuff. It's like, okay, well, yeah, we got one in the hospital here, so we're going to destroy all of the businesses in Guelph, Wellington, Dufferin, in Guelph, the city of Guelph, for one in the hospital. Wellington County's got two in the hospital. We're going to just destroy all of their prospects for business as well because there's two people in the hospital and some newly confirmed cases, or one in the hospital, I guess, in Wellington County, excuse me.
Well, hey, we're going to build back better, way better than the Trump guy. Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
And the build back better. Build back what better? Like, we've got jobs to build back. So far, we're not building those back better. We're building those back worse. We're not. What are we building back better? Exactly. What is like this empty rhetoric that everybody just kind of believes and parrots is like, is ridiculous. I'm getting a phone call, so I'm just going to pause this. Hold on a second here. Back in. Yeah, it feels disingenuous. It feels like they're doing everything they can to ignore bad actions by people who are on the inside and to allow or to crucify anybody who is not on the inside and who steps outside of a very narrow scope. And
Yeah, and you were just talking about these like kind of catchphrases, and I mean it's hard not to draw comparisons to communism
Yep.
because like all the pieces are there. You know, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to own nothing and you're going to be happy, and we're going to build back better. It's going to be a green economy. And for anybody who is like looking at this stuff, it's like, well, that basically means that the cost of entry to be a successful business is higher and higher and higher and higher. So now
Mm-hmm.
only large corporations are going to be able to be existing companies whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And these phrases, these catchphrases, I mean, I really feel like they, especially with the technology we have, where discouraging critical thinking. People are becoming more infantile and childlike, and not only that, but they want to lower the voting age. And you know who's going to really get on board with Build Back Better? Younger people who don't know things, who don't know the ways of the world. They're on board with climate change.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, look out for climate change. And like the politicization of children is so disgusting and so rampant, especially in Canada. And I really feel like phrases like Build Back Better plays right into that, plays right into like the grooming of like the infantile masses. And when, imagine being a kid growing up and having a parent who is like, wear your mask, go to school, don't burn carbon, even though that's going to be practically impossible the way we live our lives.
We're carbon-based life forms. I had there was a parent, and it was a weekend, so it could have been from anywhere around, but they were at the park that I was at, and like I was playing with my son, and my daughter was running around playing with whatever, and I heard the guy, and it was a dad and a daughter, I guess, and the daughter was younger than my kids, and and the kid was like having her hands by her mouth, and he's like, no, don't do that, you'll get COVID-19. And I was like, oh, God, man, you're doing so much damage to your kid. Like, don't do that,
That's so sad to hear, because I mean, parents have already, unfortunately, in our kind of neurotic culture, been bad at kind of projecting neurosis onto their kids. And now with COVID, oh boy.
Way worse. Way worse.
Oh boy.
So yeah, and I mean, you want to protect your kids, but the tragedy of the world is that you have to send them out into danger, and you survived, right? We survived, and I didn't make all the right choices, certainly not, right? Like there's certainly been times where I've screwed up and thought, oh, this is not the best choice. You learn and you live and you learn, and maybe you get sick, but you get better, right?
Yeah, we got to take risks. We got to take risks. And honestly, I mean, now is the time, because I don't know if people realize this, but the lockdown was supposed to be 2 weeks originally.
Yeah,
things were supposed to go away, and things were supposed to scale down. The opposite has happened, and there's still this. Oh yeah, it's just a little bit longer, and things will go back to normal. And it's at the point where it's like, folks, remember our way of life. Like if you don't stand up and fight against this, then that way of life will no longer exist.
Yep.
And for all these people who are comfortable and they're making their money and they don't care to stand up and they don't want to ruin their reputation, what are you even left to gain? You're like, what? You're not even going to be able to travel anywhere with all your money. You're not going to be able to even enjoy yourself with all this money you saved. What is it for?
I think that one, I mean, people. There's a cost to knowing what you know, right? Like especially stuff that you can't unknow, right? Like if you're kind of lost in the fog, and it might be this and it might be that, but if you know things, if you're like if you've looked into this and you're like, oh man, this looks bad, oh this looks worse, and you continue, and not necessarily validating it, but if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, there's a reason to think that you might have a communist duck walking across your floor, right? Like that's no good. But if you don't know, then you don't know, and you can ignore it. And if you don't know, and it's socially suicide to say, maybe that Trump guy is not such a bad guy, right? Because they saw what happened to their buddy who said that, right? Like, and it's fine, but there's a cost to it, and there's even a cost to waking up to that information. Because if you were preloaded with Orange Man bad, or if you're preloaded with COVID-19 is terrifying for everybody, then you're going to see that, and it takes well, there's a whole death cycle that you go through if you have to adapt to a new situation. And if your new situation is COVID-19 is maybe something that exists, but maybe not. Maybe it's just kind of the flu, and these are the normal deaths of the year, and we've been lied to. That's a totally different thing than very deadly virus on the warpath, right? Like, and so you have to figure that out with yourself, and that's hard.
Yeah, yeah. And what I tell people now is that, hey, like, we are in a whether you like it or not, we're in a psychological war, and I wouldn't spend too much time watching TV because it is not good for your health.
No, it certainly isn't. Guelph City Council spent a whole bunch of time yesterday or 2 days ago doing a workshop on systemic racism. And then the mayor put out a video today. This is like totally off the top of my head, off to the side. We didn't talk about this. But the mayor put out a video this morning talking about how, what happened in the Guelph systemic racism thing. And he's talking about how, it's uncomfortable and racism is everywhere and we have to learn and blah, 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 all this stuff. And it's like, I find it really not odd because I understand why, right? Like the infiltration of our systems and all that. I get why it's happening. But it's very odd to have people who are in charge of what is where we're going, the leadership of the city, leadership of the province, Doug Ford as well, and they're focused on things that are systemic racism, where we've got a big, massive problem of businesses being shut down everywhere and one person in the hospital, right? Like, I feel like they're focusing on this just crazy niche thing that doesn't really impact everybody unless you force it to impact everybody. And then what have you gained?
We're at the point where if you have your head screwed on properly, you are going to look around and just kind of be completely disoriented and confused of what's going on. It's almost like by being somebody who is well adjusted, grounded, you are like punished for that. Like you're almost like you're now in this unfortunately, because you're well adjusted, because you're grounded, not unfortunately, but like it's just the case that, okay, well, now you have to deal with the insanity of what you're living through. Yep. And it doesn't make any sense. And you have to, I don't know, hold on to your real friends and stay grounded and stay strong and take time for yourself as well, because you can only change so much in a day. Yeah,
that's true. That's true. It's crazy though. It's crazy. Our safe injection site doubled the deaths of injection sites. So like 2019, we had 7 people die. Now it's 15 this year. 2020 is 15, and we're not done yet. That's like science. We got to follow science, right?
That's specific, like people overdosing on it. Wow.
Yeah.
Hold up, but hey, they're called safe.
They're safe injection sites.
This is for your safety, guys. This is all about health and safety. Yeah. That's why you're not allowed to go outside or socialize with anybody. It's for your health and safety.
That's right. And doubling the deaths. It's people tell me that it's because of the bad opium, so we need to give them a safe.
I'm so tired of the person who always has the next excuse. Oh well, that's because of this. Well, that's because of. Yeah.
Sorry. It's not safe to inject opium because you might die. We shut down an entire economy because if you go outside and you breathe in the wrong way, you might get a thing that kills you. But this is safe. Inject this into your body because you might die faster. Like, thanks, government. Good job, morons. Okay, that's enough out of us. Find Greg on YouTube. Greg does wonderful songs, and he's a wonderful, interesting person to talk to. Where can they find you, Greg?
Go to my YouTube channel, Greg Wycliffe, and check out my new comedy sketch called How Joe Biden Was Elected President. It's doing very well. It's blowing up on Facebook actually, but you can find it on YouTube. Check out my YouTube channel.
Nice. I haven't seen it. I'll have to check that out. You can check me out at CanadaPoly.com unless you go to CanadaPoly.com today because I messed up the website. So no, I'm not down because anybody else took me down. I'm down because I was too confident in my update skills and the update didn't take right, and I should have probably workshopped it more than I did. Oh well. So Canada Poly will be back soon. Huh?
I said, oh, come on, Mark.
I know. Hey, Jeepers Creepers. It's not like I'm not busy or anything like that. I was like, oh, just click update this. No problem. Click. Oh, my God. 2 days later. It's ridiculous. Anyway, usually CanadaPoly.com, and that'll be back up soon. I have a full site update or backup done, so I can put it back the way it was quickly, kind of. But I'm busy, so I've got stuff to do. Canada Report is still up, CanadaReport.co. SpeakingMoistly.co will have this up soon. And thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Here is our Prime Minister still. I can't believe he's still the Prime Minister, to play us out. And, oh, maybe not. Yeah, okay. There we go.
Speaking moistly, keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly.